Hi, this is Josh Schreier, and I would like to welcome you to Module 3 in our 5 module course on Double Your Day Today, how to how to double your productivity in 5 easy steps. To review Module 2 a little bit, just to get us back on track, don't know again how long it's been since we last met each other. The key takeaways from the last module. Number 1, absolutely no technology, news, or anything of the like first thing in the morning. No technology, no internet, no phones, no answering machines, no nothing like that first thing in the morning. We explained that many work studies have shown that that decreases your productivity by 30% or more throughout the rest of your day simply by starting your day with other people's focus and other people's false emergencies. We spoke about sleep, how important sleep was, and self-care, spending the first hour to 90 minutes of your day focused exclusively on yourself. Well, that might again sound selfish to some. It's not. When you're on an airplane, everyone knows when the oxygen mask comes down, you put it on yourself before you help your child or the person sitting next to you. Even though that might sound selfish, but if you can't breathe, you can't help someone else. And if you're not in a positive state, in a healthy state, emotionally, physically, spiritually, you can't serve. You can't help others. You can't help your children. You can't help your spouse. You can't help anybody in a lowered state of emotion or lowered state of physical energy. We spoke about the concept of what you should do in the first 60 to 90 minutes, about potentially exercising, brainstorming. Many of your aha moments will come in this first 60 to 90 minutes, which again is a side benefit, not exactly the main priority of why we're doing this, but as a side benefit. Many of your greatest aha moments will come in this first 60 to 90 minutes that you're focused on yourself when you're starting your day. We gave you the example of Tony Robbins' priming exercise that you hopefully looked at on YouTube and listened to and followed. And we spoke about how energy is the key to productivity. And today we'll start with one thing that I actually left off of Module 2 that I want to talk about, which is very important, which will lead us into what we're going to talk about today. The last piece I left off in the last video. How can you work hard and long but not feel busy? What is this 4-letter word busy that interrupts so much of our day and so much of our focus? Busyness comes, I believe, many times from the thought process that if I will not finish all the things I thought I'm supposed to finish, then I'm not enough. I'm not worthwhile. I'm going to lose something, be it respect, be it love, be it my own self-worth. And a lot of that, if you really would dig deep into that and look deep into that, you'll see that's not true. That we're going to get into in Module 4 how to actually evaluate what is the best use of your time and how to actually judge what is productive time and what is non-productive time. But I want to just focus now for a second on this idea. How can you work hard and not feel busy? Because if you're doing what you know you're supposed to do, there's nothing else you should be doing. I'll have to say that again because that might sound too simple. I have to say that again. If you do what you're supposed to be doing, there's nothing else you should be doing instead. The stress and worry that comes that makes you feel busy stems many times from the place in your head that I could be doing 5 other things that are potentially more valuable, and therefore I have to rush to finish this to get to that. But if you know that what you're doing right now is the most mission critical, time sensitive, important thing to do in your day, then there's no reason whatsoever that you should be thinking how you have to rush through this to get to that. Because this is important too. This is as important or more important. We're going to talk about in the next module, how do you actually plan what these things are to know with confidence that this is the most important thing I should be doing right now, and there is nothing else. To the point where I can turn my phone off, I can turn my email off, I can turn my internet off, I can turn all my buzzers and alarms and ringers and all the 10 million noises that we bother by every day, and focus all of my energy on this one thing. This wasn't supposed to be about multitasking, but we'll get off into it for a second. That's the problem with multitasking. anything that you can do at any level of efficiency while doing something else that requires any energy whatsoever, you shouldn't be doing. Ask someone who's flying a plane to also do something else. Ask someone who's driving a race car to do something else at the same time. Ask a neurosurgeon who's doing brain surgery to check his email while he's doing brain surgery. It doesn't go. Because it just doesn't go. There's this idea that the more I can do, the better it'll be. But it's really the opposite. The better you do what you're doing right now, the better that will get done, and the more productive you will feel. Because busy comes from that even I could be doing a million things today and still feel busy because I thought I should be doing at least another 20 more. That's lack of clarity. And that lack of clarity can be paralyzing. Because if I think it's either possible to do 100 things today, which is not, or I'm not prioritized what are the most important things, and therefore I'm chasing 5 things that aren't really important, and I'm ignoring the one thing that is, or I'm procrastinating the one thing that is because it's easier to do lazy tasks. Maybe that also comes usually from a lack of physical or emotional energy, which we talked about in the last video. So that's what leads to busyness, and then it ultimately leads to stress. Because stress, according to Tony Robbins, I think he's absolutely right, is nothing more than fear disguised. And if you're afraid of the consequences of what you're not doing, that can paralyze you. And that's really where productivity falls off the map. Even people making a lot of money, even people who you may look from the outside look like they're doing great, but when you ask them in an honest moment, many of them will tell you that they're miserable. They're overworked, overwhelmed, they're not happy, they don't feel fulfilled. So that was, again, a little bit of a tangent from where we want to go today, but it's, I think, important because something that I inadvertently left off the last video, and it's important to start there. So now we're going to focus on 2 things today, basically. How do we reduce and moderate stress in stressful situations? And then gratitude, and why gratitude is so important to a positive day and a productive day. So let's start with stress. Stress, like we said a minute ago, is usually the outgrowth of not being comfortable or confident that what you're doing is the right thing. And or the usually invalid thought process that I could be doing 5 other things right now. So how do you reduce that? The number one way out of stress, unless you're in an inherently stressful job, like you're an emergency room surgeon or a race car driver, or where life and death is in your hands all day, which thankfully for most of us is probably not the case. Most of us are working in offices with computers most of the day, where life and death is usually not, within our 4 feet of control. So how do we reduce stress? Well, there's a couple ways. Number 1, reduce the amount of people that you are around who cause you stress. If there's certain coworkers of yours, certain people that you're around all the time, because of their tension and their stress, they just exude negative energy and cause you to get in a bad mood. So try to set yourself up in a situation where you're not around those people. Now, it's not always possible. Sometimes it's your kids that cause you stress. Sometimes it's your spouse. You can't always avoid people just because you don't like their attitude. But many times you can. Many times you can plan a way that you're in an environment surrounded by positive people. Because positive, happy people are rarely stressed. And who you surround yourself with becomes who you become. So number 1 tip in reducing stress is hang around the right people. Hang around positive people. If you're running a company, hire positive people. There's many negative people who are very productive, but they're not good to be around. They're not fun to be around. And the fact they might make you a lot of money because they're qualified does not mean that their negative energy and their negative emotions should take you and other people around them down. That's just a small piece of advice. Secondly, if you listen to the Tony Robbins video, audio, it's actually audio, but you listen to the audio on the Tony Robbins presentation, he went through, as part of that exercise, the 3 things that you should be grateful for every day. And that's so key. because I want to point something out here before we get deep into gratitude, that stress is almost always based around a misorganized perspective. Let me give you an example. Again, I bring again from Tony Robbins just because that he tells great stories. So he tells a story that at his seminars, many times people complain the flight here was so stressful. Now, to be fair, there are people who are scared of flying, and for those people, we're not talking about that. But he says, what's so stressful about the flight? He says, we spent 45 minutes on the runway, and they didn't let us move, and they didn't give us food, and it was so stressful. He says, and then did you fly like a bird through the sky and watch a movie and eat a meal on that bird? Eagles can't do that. So what many times we take as stressful situations is us projecting what we think the world should be like out to the world. But that's not fair. Because, first of all, we don't run the world. Somebody else runs the world. If you believe that there's a God, that the God runs the world. If you don't, then nature runs the world. However you want to language that for yourself to feel good. But we don't run the world. So when we get ourselves all worked up about situations beyond our control, or the way we think things should be, then we can't get out of our own way, and just realize, again, now leading into gratitude, how beautiful and how great things are. That I put a link below this video to a video blog post that Brendan Burchard made on gratitude, which I think everyone should watch. It's absolutely fascinating. On 6 uncommon strategies, I think the blog post is called 6 Uncommon Strategies to Improve Your Gratitude. I could do it myself here, but it's his content. I'll let him say it and not take his thunder. And I'll link to that in below the video. But now it's into gratitude. I want to ask you a question. Again, this might sound off track for where we're going, but it's very important. If I'll ask you the question, is anyone watching this, are you rich? Now, I want to make sure that question's clear. I don't mean metaphorically, I don't mean emotionally, spiritually, I mean in a pure physical, luxurious terms. So I imagine that most people, because this is what the studies show, even millionaires don't think they're rich, because most people think that somewhere around 20% more than I'm making is rich. But this is where perspective comes in. Almost all of us today, especially those who live in first world countries and are blessed to live in first world countries with the modern amenities, have a more luxurious lifestyle in pure luxury, forget everything else, than the biggest kings of Europe 100 years ago or 200 years ago. That imagine a world without indoor plumbing, without heating and air conditioning, and with buggies and horse-drawn carriages on dirt roads with potholes deeper than your knees. The King of England had to travel the same roads that the peasants had to travel. He didn't have his own special gold-paved roads from England to France to visit the Duke. So we have to appreciate what we have. That is so important. Again, we can get so lost in what we think should happen and what we think should be this outcome and what that person should do and what should happen. But you know what happens? Life happens. But that doesn't mean that we have to get down on ourselves. We don't have to get down on others. That the easiest way to lose effectiveness and productivity throughout our day is to lose track of what we have, how grateful we should be of what we have, and how to appreciate all the amazing blessings that have been bestowed upon us from either our Creator or from people who love us. And while there's always something that you could focus on that's negative, there's always something you can focus on that's positive. That's another exercise from Tony Robbins. He comes up a lot so far today. But he's one of my biggest mentors, even though I haven't had the privilege to meet him, but he's one of my biggest mentors of all the content I've consumed of his. And he says very clearly, where focus goes, energy flows. That what you focus on, you feel. If you focus on the good things, you will feel good. If you focus on the bad things, you will feel bad. And it has nothing to do with reality, because everything going on around you that you can say is quote unquote bad If you see the good, if you see the one rainbow in the rainstorm, if you see the one positive light in the darkness, that alone will change your day. So all of this is really a build up to actually how we spend our day. Because again, right now we're 3 videos in and we haven't started our actual work day, or we basically have not gone past, for most of us, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, because we've taken only talking about the first hour, 90 minutes of the day. But you'll see when you try this and when you implement this first 60 to 90 minutes is so crucial, and the way you approach it emotionally and intellectually and the way you interact with people has so much to do with productivity, so much more than techniques of how to, make the best to-do list that you keep organized. So in our next video, we're going to actually talk about how to set your day, how to set priorities for your day, how to know what to ignore, what to ignore and what to focus on. And with that, we'll conclude today's module. We'll pick up in module 4 when we see you next time. Again, live with love, live with passion, live with vigorousness and vitality. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you in our next video.